we're live. Wait.
My screen shows that you are live.
All right. It says it's preparing, it's recording, and let me get out of there. And we are live. Yes, we are. All right. There we go. For the study session tonight, finance numbers 5 and 6 are extra. And that is recommend acceptance of the contract for Gokenauer, Ernest Smizer, and Berg Certified Public Accountants to conduct the annual audit of financial records as required by the Department of Education for a fee of $12,600. And the other one is what we talked about, recommended approval of the Adams County Technical Institute budget for the 2020-2021 school year. In addition to finances, I want to share that I sent the board a proposal from Apple. And Luke, I reached out and you saw that response. That was a very quick response. So there's some good news to this all. So when you think about everything here, so you guys have the proposal for us to be able to go one-to-one next year with iPads for every kid to level the playing field, depending how the next school year looks. In addition to that, thank you to Doug Epley, who put together all the iPads that we distributed this year, K through 8, and it was a little over 1,000. And I sent that off to Apple, and they put it out to bid with a couple companies. And right now, one company is willing to pay us $138,000 for 1,000 iPads. So when we talk about the Apple proposal, that $100,000 down payment is going to be covered with $38,000 left over after we sell back the other iPads. A potential $38,000. So as a possible additional item under finance, would the board be willing to put a number 7? And I guess it'd be a verbal motion and to finance for this year the iPads so that we are one-to-one next year. Or are there questions on it that you're not sure about? This is the time. Obviously, I know this is a big step, but I also know that we saw pretty quickly with our continuity of education plan that if we had to continue that next year, we're nowhere near ready to have everybody go in a one-to-one environment because we don't have enough devices to do it.
Yeah, I still think the iPads are a way to go for elementary schools. I'm not going on them in secondary.
I know you're not, Luke. And you know what? Here's the best thing about that, though. With the iPads that we have at the high school, when that lease is up, we have to trade in 1,200 plus 1,500 iPads. So they're going to get even more money because they're newer compared to the ones that we're trading in. So we could take that money that we get from those and put it towards MacBooks or something else if we need to reduce the cost of that, to offset it. When you look down the line, it might not happen next year or the year after. You know what I mean? We're in a 4-year lease with a 4 or 5 year lease, but when that lease is up, we can then look to trade that stuff in, get money for that to reduce the cost.
Well, and by then things could change a lot too.
Yes.
Would this take the place of textbooks for those younger grades? Will we be doing away with all kinds of textbooks now?
You can, because a lot of what you can do, you could put right into our Schoology platform and PDFs, and the kids can have access instead of having to carry around a textbook for everything. They can have access on their iPad to everything if need be.
Chris, if we hold off till June, well, that would put us behind the 8 ball to start the new school year.
It doesn't put us behind the 8 ball. The idea was to get this in place now, so that 100,000 wasn't put towards the 2020-21 school budget.
Oh, okay.
That's why we were looking at it. The other piece of it is, getting 2,200 iPads. There's work on the back end that people don't see that Luke is aware of, that Doug and his crew will have to do as far as registering tagging and getting the devices ready to be actually handed out and part of our school system so that everything will work properly.
Okay, well, then we don't want to push it off till June. So everybody needs to recognize the fact that this, because of what happened with the pandemic, that this may be an ongoing thing starting next year. Plus, we also submitted to have no snow days, so one way or the other, it's going to be utilized.
I see Mr. Kinshu has his hand up.
Yeah, I was just waiting. So when did we have in our multi-year plan
Sure.
the completion of the one-to-one?
So this coming year, 2021 was 7-8. 21-22 was 4-5-6. 22-23 was K through 3.
Okay, so we're looking to pull in basically 2 years.
Yes.
And I agree with Mr. Groff that based on what we saw with the pandemic and the uncertainty and the feedback from you and the staff is that it's essential to get the one-to-one to be successful next year.
Okay. So Brooke, is that just when we get to finance, right? Luke, you have finance, I believe, right?
Nope.
Oh, who has finance?
Luke does have finance.
Oh, so
If we can make the edit at the very beginning, can you show
Okay.
me the beginning of the agenda, Chris?
yep. Right there, you're right here.
So, yeah, so go there to the next page. Sorry,
Whew. What's
one more
that?
page.
Right here.
Sorry, no, one more page the other direction.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Okay, so at just after the superintendent report,
Okay.
that's when we should make the motion to amend the agenda. So
Okay.
we can amend both parts to add this expenditure as
Okay.
well as to modify the involuntary resignation language and turn it into termination.
Okay.
Reference the new number in finance and the revision in personnel. That way it's on the agenda and revised, and the board
Okay.
will vote on that, and then the public can comment on those two new items.
Very good. Okay. You got that, Mr. Groft?
All right.
So,
Killing
so I
me.
don't have to say anything.
Nope.
And who's gonna make that motion for me?
Flick.
I don't need somebody to make, we will need a motion for the personnel position. Am I correct?
Yes?
What
To
position are
revise
we
that
calling
language?
that?
It's a supervisor of special education.
Oh, you're adding that too.
Oh,
So that's 3 things.
Yes, 3 things. There you
Okay.
go.
Okay,
I have them listed down and I will coach, the motion. I will, when you say I would like a motion to amend the agenda, I'll say it's for the following items, and then we can have someone say first and second.
Okay, so it's one vote for all 3.
It's one vote for all 3 to amend the agenda. Yes,
Okay.
okay. All right, that'll be great.
I gotcha.
Okay, when I say, is there any public comment on the agenda-related items you're gonna break in? Am I correct?
I'm gonna do it right after Chris's report. So after Chris finishes up, you can say, we're gonna move on to public comment. Before public comment, we have a few amendments to the agenda. We want to get those on there. That way you can comment if necessary.
Okay,
Perfect.
When am I doing the budget report, or the presentation? When do you want that?
When we hit number 1,
Hit just on the first one?
I mean, when we hit finance, yep, for board action, we'll.
Or
Yes.
Did you want to skip it?
No. Don't you try that, Duncan.
No,
Oh.
there's no football on tonight.
Yes.
Yeah, there's
The
no
way-
TV. No
the way
entertainment.
Linda used to do it was
Can I
she
ask,
would say 1 through 3, and then she would come back and say additional 5 and 6. And then we come back and say, okay, number 4, Mrs. Duncan, you'll need to explain what number 4 is. And then it was always a separate motion.
Pat, did you have a question?
Yes, I wanted to know if the general fund budget for 2021 is being passed tonight or just being adopted for the regular meeting next, which would be June, I assume?
Correct. The
Okay.
final, it's adopting the proposed budget, and then the final adoption is in June.
So we're just voting
Just to
to
get the preliminary budget.
adopt it for the next regular meeting, to go over it.
You're voting for it to be advertised so the public knows what the proposal is, but the
Okay.
final budget is not voted on until next month. That's the one that requires a vote that is then submitted to PDE as approved or not approved.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And then the only other thing in Ways and Means that I will share I'll wait till June to share, just so you're aware, I am working on a potential calendar for 2021 in case we get directives from the state or governor or PDE that says that we have to start after Labor Day. So I am currently working on that, and I'll have that ready to share in June. What that potentially may look like for us if we have to begin school after Labor Day, which could be a possibility. So I want to make sure that we're prepared and we have a calendar ready to go just in case that would happen, and still give our community plenty of time to see that and make adjustments as needed. Okay. I think that's all we have then.
All right.
So I think we're ready to actually begin, Mr. Groff, the official meeting.
All right. So I will open. Is Madam Secretary ready?
Yes.
Okay. With that being said, we will call to order. We will have the Pledge of Allegiance with a moment of silence for the May 11th meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
which it stands, one
Which it
nation,
stands.
under God,
God,
indivisible,
visible,
with
liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Now, at the when we received the minute, or when we received our email, our April 13th minutes were in that original study session email. Did everybody get a chance to review? If there are no additions or corrections, we need a motion to approve.
So moved.
And a second?
Second,
Okay. All in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Motion stands. All right, there'll be no building reports at all tonight, am I correct?
That's correct. We're going to have everyone here in June to give their end of the year reports and talk about what they've been up to.
Okay, that'll be great. And nothing from Jason tonight?
No, nothing tonight. I'm going to have him come back in June to introduce the new person for next year and also give a final end of the year report for the high school.
Okay, thank you. All right, Dr. Perry, you're up.
All right, good evening, everyone. So I have 4 items to discuss this evening briefly. As you know, we were in the process of exploring the potential of adding career and technical education programs here at Conewago Valley School District. We determined that the 3 programs that we could best implement as early as next year would be the following: family and consumer science, welding, and engineering. As part of this, we've been working with the curriculum leaders for each of these departments. Mr. Drew Little was the point of contact for administration. Dr. Bowman and of course, Dr. Rudisil have been a part of these conversations. We've done the research to find out all of the school districts in Pennsylvania that offer these particular programs. And Mr. Little and the curriculum leaders have been in communication with those respective school districts, principals and/or curriculum leaders and teachers in order for us to gather information to make a successful application to PDE at the conclusion of May 2020. So that date is coming up here very, very quickly. Along with that curriculum-based research that we've been undergoing, we also are obligated by PDE to explore articulation agreements with post-secondary institutions. So we have had multiple conversations with several colleges and universities about what those articulations may look like moving forward. And, you know, as I mentioned, that is a requirement as part of the application that you have some type of a relationship that enables career and technical education students to access college credits as part of their program. Any questions about career and technical education at this point? Okay. For field trips and conferences, as previously discussed, they will be a part of the approvals this evening. So they are attached to the agenda for this evening. You know, as Dr. Rudisil indicated before, there were a lot of hard decisions that needed to be made. They knew it was virtually impossible for all of the requests to be approved. All of the field trips and the conferences were best aligned to the responsibilities and to the curriculum. So that, you know, those were the 2 decision screens for number 2 and number 3. Any questions about that before we move forward?
How's the COVID gonna, how's that gonna fall into place when they go to do these field trips?
Yeah, unfortunately, at this point, it's a case-by-case basis, as many of our field trips this spring needed to be canceled based upon the guidance of our governor and the CDC. So we will continue to move forward. We do need to plan as if we were going to be face-to-face and have access to these field trips and conferences now to have these board approved moving forward. However, we might have to cancel any or some of these events.
Thank you.
And finally, the flexible instructional days is the last item in my report this evening. The flexible instructional days enable us as a school district to utilize up to 5 days for online learning in case of a weather emergency or other emergency is determined within the guidelines of the Pennsylvania Department of Education. So we're in the process of collecting those artifacts and those exemplars from our curriculum leaders to submit to the Pennsylvania Department of Education. Our goal is to have that submitted no later than June, although the deadline is not until early fall. So we are moving forward with that. And Dr. Rudisil and I have been taking a look at the exemplars that are coming in. We are taking it one step further where we are requiring an exemplar from every department at every level, as opposed to the Pennsylvania Department of Ed only requiring an ELA exemplar as well as a math exemplar in the core of the secondary level. So we will have exemplars on file, you know, for every departmental level and every content area here at Conewago Valley School District moving forward. Additionally, alongside that, you know, in my end of the year meetings, our curriculum leaders have indicated that this was good practice for them, not only during the pandemic, but, planning what might it look like as we return in the fall. So they did appreciate the opportunity to work with their colleagues on these exemplars while we were still in session. So it's been a really, really great learning experience for our curriculum leaders and their colleagues to extend their learning and their conversations as we move through with our continuity of education plan. So I've been really pleased with their progress. And that's all I have for you this evening.
Okay, are there any questions?
Can
If not-
I stupidly ask what an exemplar is? Is it what I think it's an example?
Yes, it's a best example that we have of a lesson plan that would talk about the activities that students would be engaging in on one of these days. So it provides an opportunity for us as district office, as well as the curriculum leaders, to get some clarity and give our best example of the types of work that we would be asking students to complete on these kind of snow days, for example.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to Dr. Rudisil.
Well, good evening and thank you. So tonight, I'm going to talk about just 3 quick things. And first and foremost, want to recognize Dr. Perry, Mrs. Kress, Mrs. Zeminski, our building administrators, and CVEA, our teachers. Today, I found out that Apple Education is going to do a profile or story on our district because of our continuity of education plan that we submitted and have in place at PDE. This was, I guess, discovered by Apple Education through some Twitter conversations with Autumn Zeminski and several of our teachers that participate in an Apple EDU Twitter chat. And they were so impressed with what we are doing as a district, they want to highlight and feature us through Apple Education. So we are currently working on that right now, and I'm sure that will be coming out here probably in the near future. So when it does, I'll make sure that we have it shared with the board so that you can see what Apple thinks of us, which is pretty cool. So I just want to say kudos to all those people to make that happen. Last week was National Teacher Appreciation Week, and I want to take a moment to recognize our teachers and all our professionals. It was also Nurses Week, and I believe it was National Cafeteria Staff Week. It was a week of weeks last week. That was no doubt about it. And I want to just take a moment to recognize just how thankful and how proud I am of our staff and everything that we do for our students and our community. I am proud to be their superintendent and proud to call all of them my colleagues. They do an amazing job and outstanding effort and accomplishments, and it's seen every day with our continuity of education plan, and just even when we have students here in the building with us, the things that we are able to do, just truly amazing, and that's a reflection of them and all their hard work. And I'm thankful to be part of this district and thankful to be their colleagues. So I just wanted to recognize them. And then just kudos to our school board, our administrators, and all our leadership for all the time and dedication that we're putting in now to make sure that our students don't miss a beat in any way whatsoever with our continuity of education plan, and making sure that we are available, offering more opportunities when needed, trying to be very responsive to community and their needs. If I get an email from a parent that's upset because maybe something didn't go right, I'm responding in less than 24 hours, and then having the building principal and the teacher also reach out to them in less than 24 hours to make sure that we are doing what we have to do to meet the needs of our students. And I'm just, again, kudos to all of them for everything they're doing. And that's all I have to report on tonight. Thank you.
Well, Chris, to follow up on that, I had the opportunity to speak with 2 different families this week that gave your office kudos for everything that you're doing. The one lady said that her husband works second shift and she works first shift. So between the 2 of them, all the homework is getting done, and they love the way that you are operating. So some of that starts at the top. If we don't have a leader that has the vision to make this work, the rest cannot follow suit. So we got to give kudos to you also.
Thank you. But again, I'm one person and they're many and they make the job happen. So, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Now, we need to add some items to be amended before we have public comment. I will turn it over to you, Brooke.
Yes, just so the public is aware, we're going to be seeking a motion to revise under personnel, number 16, to be revised to indicate that as a termination, not an involuntary resignation. Also in personnel, to add number 18, which I believe, as described, is the administration recommending approval of the posting of the position of supervisor of special education. And then finally, back at finance, you're going to be adding number 7, which, as I understand it, Dr. Rudisil, would be the administration requesting approval of the purchase of the remaining iPads necessary to conclude the one-to-one initiative of the school district at the approximate cost of
$100,000 in year 1, and then a 3-year lease following that with payments of $240,000.
So that would be approval to proceed with that as additional finance number 7. And then the board president would be seeking a motion and a second to make those amendments.
A motion to make those 3 amendments to the agenda.
Do we have a second?
I'll
Yeah.
second.
Okay, are there any more questions before we have a roll call vote?
Nothing on the live stream and nothing on Google.
Okay. Motion to approve, and we have a second. Do you want to do a roll call vote, or can we do an aye or nay?
A voice vote is fine. And then after you complete that portion, you'll just go out one more last time for public comment, and then you're good.
All in favor of the amended motions, say aye.
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 Any nays? The motion is carried. Now, can we have a check of any public comment on the agenda related items?
I have nothing coming in on the live stream and nothing on the Google Doc that's available.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to honors and recognition, and that looked pretty slim, Jeff.
Well, thank you, Mr. Groff. We do have one student kind of bring us back to the normal. I'd like to recognize a scholarship awardee, Wade Linebaugh, who received an athletic scholarship to Salem University.
All right.
That's all that I have for tonight.
Well, I think we need to give a congratulations to Dr. Rudisil and everyone involved, making this period of time as smooth as possible. So I think that's a congratulations to all. Thank you for that report. All right. Mr. Craybill, do you have a treasurer's report?
The balance of the 5 accounts is $14,917,820.54. I so move the treasurer's report be filed for audit.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Very good. Can we have a roll call vote on the treasurer's report?
Okay, Mr. Buckley,
Yes.
Mr. Flickinger,
Yes.
Mr. Huffman,
Yes.
Ms. Gauker,
Yes.
Mrs. Bolton,
Yes.
Mr. Craybill,
Yes.
Mrs. Souter,
Yes.
Mr. Kinshu,
Yes.
and Mr. Groft.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we will move on to our financial report.
I'd like to recommend items 1 through 4 with additional items 5 through 7 for approval.
Okay,
Second,
do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any additional corrections? Before we move on, number 4, we'll have Mrs. Duncan give her presentation on the budget.
All right, are we ready?
Yes, ma'am, you
Okay.
have the floor.
All right. Good evening, everyone. This evening, we're going to look over the proposed final budget for the 2021 school year. We'll start again with our mission statement. And our mission statement is to promote individual and collaborative excellence, enabling students to become competent, confident, and creative builders of the future. So we'll begin tonight by looking at our revenues. The district revenues is received from several local sources. The primary source is property tax. The state revenue is basically either basic ed subsidies or other subsidies such as reimbursements like transportation, special ed. Our federal aid consists of title programs and some access money. So as you can see, due to the COVID pandemic, our revenues are expected to decrease by 2.7%. So if we look at the chart on the far left, the sources of revenue, you can see that the local revenue is basically decreasing, and that is due to information we've received to this point of the changes to EIT possibilities, real estate tax collection, and all of those types of things. And then when you go down and look at the state revenue, you'll see that state revenue is basically very similar to what it was before. There is some expectation of a decrease in the state revenue, but that has been made up by what they're considering the CARE Act aid. So you won't see a lot of change in the state revenue because of the CARE Act. Also, the federal revenue.
Hey, Carol?
The federal revenue is basically the same, as you can see. So when we look down at the bottom chart, it shows you the amount of change, and you're seeing that the local revenue is dropping about 3.3 million, and then that is like the largest drop of all of the revenues. So when you look at the chart on the right side, you can see that everything is very similar, except the local revenue has a slight decrease. And that's the decrease due to the expectations of the unknowns with the pandemic at this point in time. So we move to the next slide. Okay, so this slide again reflects the lack of state funding. When you look at the top slide, you can see where the majority of our revenue comes from the taxes that are levied. So you can see that that's basically local revenue. So again, just emphasizes how the state has fallen behind in funding our school district and how the local revenue is what takes care of our students. So, and then when you look at the charts on the bottom, those are just looking by category, again, at comparing last year's budget to the proposed future budget. So comparison real estate taxes, you can see that, again, the real estate taxes have a decrease, and that's due to the anticipation of some of the pandemic effects on local earned income tax, again, and real estate tax collection. Interest rates are basically tanked, so it's the effects on our local funding. When you look at the basic ed funding, this chart is a little bit skewed in the middle because the Learn grant is included in the 2021 year and in the 20 school year, and it's not included in the 21. But basically, if you add the $570,000 for the Learn grant, you can still see that the state revenue has fallen behind a little bit. And again, the federal revenue is very similar. It hasn't changed much for this current school year and then for next school year. So we'll move on and take a quick look at our expenses. So as you can see, education is a labor-intensive industry. With that being said, salaries and benefits are our largest and is the majority of our expenses. The salaries that you see reflect a negotiated changes in compensation. That's for the teacher's contract, as well as for employees not covered by a union. Currently, we are in the 2021 school year would be the second year of a 3-year agreement with the teachers union. We also have purchase services, supplies, properties. These have all increased. And I just wanted to just reiterate, purchase services include services provided by persons or firms that are with specialized skills and knowledge, such as our LIU, our auditors, our consultants. It can also include repairs and maintenance where we have someone from the outside come in. It's a service that we can't perform. And it's also other purchase services such as communications, charter schools, tuitions to other districts, transportation. So there's a lot that's included in that purchase services. So when you look at the chart below, you'll see that the largest increase is the purchase services of $1.4 million. Most of that increase comes from additional alt ed programs that we've had that we're going to be starting at the district, special education, tuition to other LEAs or other institutions, and special ed transportation increased, our charter schools increased. So it's a lot of those things that make up that $1.4 million. And again, the chart on the right, you can see that most of the expenses are very similar. The biggest difference, again, is with the purchase services when you're looking at comparing the two budget years. Moving to the next slide. And the last slide showed all our expenses by object, that being if it was a supply, if it was salaries, if it was benefits, those types of things. This slide looks at the same expenses, but it breaks it into the function area, that being whether it's instructional, support services, those types of things. So you can again see that the largest portion of our budget goes into our instruction, which it should. It's our teachers, our regular ed, special ed, all of those instructional areas. So you can see that the largest portion of our budget is in that area. So we can move to our next slide. Okay, this is a historical review of our revenues and expenditures. So on the top portion of the page, you can see all our revenues and the history of it. So basically what this tells you is that for our revenues, 65% of our revenue comes from our local sources, 34% comes from the state source, and 1% from federal funds. So that again shows you the disparity of the state supporting the district. The bottom or the middle portion of the chart shows our expenditures. And again, it's showing you that 42% is salaries, 29% is benefits. So together, 71% of our budget goes to paying salaries and benefits. 20% goes to the purchase services, things that I just talked about, the special ed, the audit programs, and those different types of services. And then the rest of it is just other objects, that's 9%. So again, it's showing you the breakdown of where our expenditures are going. The bottom chart gives us a picture of our general fund balance. And as you can see, it's taken a few dips, but it's been maintaining, basically maintaining itself. And basically what that's telling us is the tax increases and things that we've done along the way are helping to maintain the district and keeping us moving in a positive direction. Okay, if we move to the next slide. Again, Just going over a few of the major cost areas. Benefits, of course, is always a big area. And the healthcare costs increased by 2%. That's the actual contract that we have with our Blue Cross carrier, increased by 2%, which is really great considering what some of the costs have been in the past. Again, Social Security and Medicare costs will increase based upon salary increases. And PSERS, the rate is 34.29%, and it's moving to 34.51%. So the rates are high, but they're supposed to be stabilizing. The unfortunate thing is, again, with the COVID situation, the PSERS relies on their investment earnings to support the whole PSERS program, the retirement program. So there is an uncertainty as to where these rates will end up and whether or not they'll need to start increasing again due to the fact that interest earnings, investment earnings are virtually non-existent at this point in time. Moving to the next slide. Excuse me. Excuse me a second. Another concern that we continue to have and we always want to bring forward is charter schools. So in the current year budget, or the budget for 2021, we will have $2.4 million as anticipated costs for charter schools. This includes cyber charter schools where we have 105 students, and it also includes charter schools where we have 69 students in a brick and mortar program, and that's Vita and Montessori in Gettysburg. Currently, these charter schools and cyber schools cannot charge us for additional students beyond what was enrolled as of March 13th. So we're not sure, it's an unknown as to what their enrollment will look like in the fall when they can start to charge us for additional students. So we're hoping that the costs aren't out of control. So at this point, it's an unknown impact, but hopefully the students have appreciated the programs and things that we've done, and they are going to continue to come to our district and utilize our education system. So that brings us to the budget shortfall. Basically, this is showing that the revenues are 59.1 million. The projected expenditures are 64.8 million, and our fund balance deficit is 5.6 million. With the tax increase, it would give us, if we did a tax increase, it would give us 1,051,000, which is, excuse me, which is about $47 per $100,000 for an individual with a $100,000 home. So it'd be $47.08 to be exact per $100,000 increase. So if we take our deficit and we take off the tax increase, that brings us down to about 4.6 million. Normally, we have about a $2 million deficit. Well, the other $2.6 million is the loss in revenue that we potentially have with the COVID situation and with the information that we've been given. This is the amount that has actually PASBO has calculated. We did our own calculations and we came very close to their calculations. So we're on track for what we normally do. Hopefully the COVID situation doesn't impact us as they're anticipating. And again, this is the worst case scenario. So we're hoping that it will be better than what we anticipate. So this brings us to the fact that, one, this is not the final adoption tonight. The final adoption will be in June. There are options that we have that we can continue to do as we gain information. We can still continue to review the expenditures. We can use the index of 3.5%, again, which would give us about $1,051,000. We can use fund balance to balance. And I wanted to note that the special ed exception, where we would have gained about $480,000, we're not recommending using that exception. And the reason being is we want to be cognizant of our public and the situations that we're in. So that is a situation where we feel that we would not want to use the special ed exception. So again, I just want to say what is presented is the worst case scenario. Predictions we will continue to review as information comes in. We need to keep moving forward and not handcuff ourselves. And we don't know what PDE may do in the coming future. So next year we could be in a situation where PDE makes a rule, or the state makes a rule where we cannot have tax increases. So by not following through this year, we could end up handcuffing ourselves for several years down the road. So again, we'll keep all these things in mind. We'll continue to update you as we have more information, and we will then have a final vote and probably just an updated presentation in June. So to finish up, again, I want to say the goals for our budget is to maintain and improve academic programs. We want to continue to invest in our district's infrastructure, and we want to maintain our fiscal awareness of our community. So that's all I have for this evening. And again, we will have updates in the coming at the next board meeting. So hopefully we'll have more information by that point in time. And I apologize for the noise. That was my dog having I don't know if you hear my dog having a little bit of a difficulty.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Duncan.
You're welcome.
All right, for finance, we have numbers 1 through 4 with the addition of 5 and 6, plus 7 for the purchase of the iPads. Do I have a second?
Second.
Who said second, please?
Tara.
Tara, thank you.
Okay.
Do we have a roll call vote, Mrs. Duncan?
Yes. Mr. Flickinger,
Yes.
Mr. Huffman? Mr. Huffman? I think you're muted. Mr. Huffman?
I wasn't. Am I there now?
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Scalker?
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Bolton?
Yes.
Mr. Craybill?
Yes.
Mrs. Souter?
Yes.
Mr. Kinshu?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Mr. Groft?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on to Ways and Means. Mike, can you pick that up?
Yes, I can. I would like to recommend that items 1 through 4 are as printed.
All right, is there any additional corrections in Ways and Means? All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Huffman?
Yes.
Thank you. Scalker? Ms. Scalker?
Yes.
Mrs. Bolton?
Yes.
Mr. Craybill?
Yes.
Mrs. Souter?
Yes.
Mr. Kinshu?
Yes.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
Mr. Flickinger?
Yes.
And Mr. Groft?
Yes. All right. We will move on to personnel. Eric, can you take personnel?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to recommend items on the personnel 1 through 12, additional items 13 through 17 with the exception of 16, changing it from involuntary resignation again to termination. These recommend for approval.
And also 18.
And number 18, sir.
Oh, 18. I'm sorry, 18. Yep, for the other position.
Supervisor of Special Ed.
Special education, right, yeah. Thank you.
All right. In personnel, we have 1 through 12, 13 through 17, with 16 to make that a termination. And number 18 is a supervisor of special ed. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Gauker,
Yes.
Mrs. Bolton,
Yes.
Mr. Craybill,
Yes.
Mrs. Souter,
Yes.
Mr. Kinshu,
Yes.
Mr. Buckley,
Yes.
Mr. Flickinger,
Yes.
Mr. Huffman,
Yes.
and Mr. Groff.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Properties and supplies, we have none tonight. Dates to remember. On my calendar, it still says May 29th for graduation. If we can make that happen, if not, our next study session will be June 1st, and the board meeting will be June 8th. And hopefully, we can do that in person.
What
All
about
right.
July 20th meeting? Are we definitely having that?
I would say yes. I would say there are going to be a
Yeah.
lot of things that we need to make sure that we're going to be ready for the new school year.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I have it on my calendar.
Yep. So Mrs. Bolton, if you're like in Hawaii on vacation, I'll send you the Zoom link. You can just join us remotely.
All right. You would like that, sitting on the island. I'll put the palm trees in the background.
There you go.
All right. Is there any other business which may be properly come before the board? Does anybody have anything? And is there anything in from YouTube?
Nothing on the live stream and nothing in our Google Docs.
How about any public comment? Nothing at all?
No, nothing.
Okay. I would say it's about 8:12, and I would say that the May 11th meeting has now been adjourned.
See everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.